America, land of innovation, and some truly spectacular fails. Forget the genius stuff for a minute. Get ready for 33 historical US inventions so weird, so dumb, they'll make your brain short-circuit. We're talking electric shock baths, baby cages hanging over streets. Yes, these were real. Let's dig into the glorious absurdity. 1. Alright, let's kick things off with a truly electrifying piece of historical genius, or idiocy. Picture the late 1800s. Science is booming, electricity is the new magic, and people are desperate for miracle cures. Enter the electric bath. No, not just a fancy tub with lights. We're talking about submerging your unsuspecting body into water laced with actual electrical currents. Promoters claim this electrifying soak could cure literally everything. Nervousness, rheumatism, indigestion, probably even boredom and bad fashion sense. You'd sit there, gripping electrodes while gentle, or not-so-gentle volts coursed through you, supposedly revitalizing your system. Imagine the sales pitch. Feeling sluggish? Tired of life? Try our patented Electro Soak 3000. Side effects may include mild electrocution, spontaneous muscle spasms, and the lingering smell of ozone. The sheer quackery is astounding. People willingly paid to turn their bath time into a low-budget science experiment gone wrong. It's like today's wellness trends, but with a much higher risk of accidentally frying yourself like a piece of soggy toast. The original shock therapy, just wetter and probably way more dangerous. 2. Fast forward to the glorious, neon-soaked 1980s, an era of questionable fashion and even more questionable diet fads. Forget Atkins or keto, the ultimate solution for weight control arrived: the anti-eating mask. This wasn't some subtle psychological trick. It was a literal cage you strapped to your face. A metal grid, often described as resembling a medieval torture device or something Hannibal Lecter might wear on his day off, physically barred food from entering your mouth. Imagine walking around town, trying to have a conversation, maybe sip a drink through a straw poked between the bars, all while looking like you're about to bite someone's face off. The marketing promised effortless weight loss by simply making eating impossible. But what about, breathing or sneezing? And God forbid you lost the key. The sheer public humiliation factor alone is staggering. It wasn't just a diet aid. It was a portable prison for your face, screaming to the world, "I have zero self-control, but I do own this terrifying contraption." 3. Back to the 1800s, before steam engines and electricity were everywhere, powering stuff was a challenge. Need to pump water? Grind grain? Operate machinery? Forget fossil fuels, let's use the Horseman Treadmill. Now, animal-powered treadmills weren't entirely unique, but the scale and sheer Rube Goldberg-esque nature of some designs were incredible. Imagine not just one horse, but multiple horses, or sometimes oxen, plodding endlessly on a giant, inclined conveyor belt or walking in circles pushing a massive lever all day long just to generate power for a relatively simple task. It's the literal definition of horsepower, just sadder. Picture a majestic steed, born to run free, instead spending its days walking intensely but going absolutely nowhere, like a 19th century office worker stuck in a cubicle. The inefficiency is painful to consider. It was the Industrial Revolution powered by existential dread and very tired animals. 4. Got mice? Annoyed by those pesky rodents scurrying around? Forget traps, forget poison, forget getting an actual cat. What you really need, according to a 1963 patent, is the cat Meow Machine. This marvel of modern technology was a simple box designed to emit a realistic, or perhaps deeply unrealistic, cat's meow sound at regular intervals, typically every 10 to 15 seconds. The groundbreaking theory? Hearing a cat meow constantly would terrify mice into fleeing your home forever. Never mind that mice are actually pretty smart and would likely realize after the 500th identical meow from the same spot that there's no actual feline predator present. The real victim here? Any human within earshot. Imagine trying to sleep, work, or simply exist with a relentless electronic mew, 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 piercing the silence every quarter minute. It wasn't pest control, it was psychological torture for homeowners. The mice probably adapted. The humans likely went insane. 5. The 1930s brought us many things, including the utterly terrifying baby cage. Living in a cramped city apartment? Worried your precious bundle of joy isn't getting enough fresh air and sunshine? Simple. Just install this wire mesh cage, hang it precariously out your apartment window, stories above the unforgiving pavement, and pop little Timmy inside for his daily airing. Yes, people actually did this. Patents were filed, cages were sold, photos exist showing infants casually suspended over busy London and even some American city streets. What could possibly go wrong? Faulty installation? Sudden gust of wind? A particularly ambitious pigeon? The sheer, mind-numbing disregard for basic safety is staggering. It makes modern helicopter parenting look positively negligent in its lack of airborne baby cages. A chilling reminder that sometimes fresh ideas are just tragically, terrifyingly dumb. 6. Imagine capturing a moment forever, precisely at the instant you potentially end one. Introducing the Revolver Camera, patented in New York in 1938. This wasn't just a camera shaped like a gun. It was a literal Colt 38 revolver with a tiny camera attached, synchronized to take a photograph automatically every time the trigger was pulled. The marketing angle? Documenting the exact moment of, well, whatever you were shooting at. Was it for law enforcement to capture criminals mid-crime? For hunters to get that perfect action shot of their prey? Or just for incredibly morbid photo albums? The patent didn't specify, leaving the horrifying implications wide open. Picture the family gathering, and here's Uncle Bob, right as he, dispatched that squirrel. It's a gadget seemingly designed by someone who thought photography just wasn't dramatic or potentially lethal enough. Combining firearms and family photos, what could possibly go wrong? 7. Forget smartwatches. The future of wearable tech in 1949 looked different. Behold the radio hat. Invented by Victor Hoeflich, this stylish, questionable pith helmet came equipped with a built-in portable radio receiver and speaker, powered by a battery pack stuffed in your pocket. And the crowning glory? 2 prominent loop antennas sticking out like metallic insect feelers, ensuring you could pick up those AM waves and look utterly ridiculous doing it. Imagine strolling down the street, news headlines or big band music blaring directly from your headwear, while those glorious antennas bobbed along. It promised hands-free listening decades before earbuds, but at the steep price of your dignity and any hope of blending into a crowd. It was heavy, reception was spotty, and it probably gave you a headache. But hey, at least you could listen to baseball games while looking like a visitor from a very confused future. 8. Tired of boring old walking? Feet just too slow? The 1960s offered a solution. Motorized roller skates. Yes, someone looked at perfectly functional roller skates and thought, you know what this needs? A tiny, noisy, potentially explosive gasoline engine strapped to the back. These contraptions, often featuring a single engine powering one skate with a handheld throttle, promised effortless speed and excitement. What they delivered was likely a terrifying combination of vibration, fumes, questionable steering, zero effective brakes, and an extremely high probability of fiery crashes. Imagine rocketing down the sidewalk on tiny wheels propelled by internal combustion, desperately trying not to become a human fireball. It's less personal transportation and more an extreme sport designed for people who found regular roller derby too safe and predictable. A true monument to 60s optimism and a blatant disregard for ankle safety. 9. Feeling distracted? Overwhelmed by the noisy, bustling world of 1925? Hugo Gernsback, prolific inventor and science fiction pioneer, had the answer. The Isolator Helmet. This terrifying piece of headgear looked like something dredged up from a deep sea dive or a low-budget horror film. It was a solid helmet covering the entire head, lined with cork to block out sound, with only tiny glass eye holes to see through. To breathe, you got a tube connected to an oxygen tank. The goal? Complete sensory deprivation to achieve maximum concentration for reading or writing. Imagine sitting at your desk, encased in this claustrophobic nightmare, utterly blind and deaf to the outside world, slowly sucking on your oxygen tube, Productivity through sensory torture. Unsurprisingly, it never caught on. Probably because people realize that concentrating is hard, but concentrating while feeling like you're being buried alive is even harder. 10. Smoking in the rain. A timeless dilemma for the dedicated nicotine addict. But fear not, the 1950s offered a solution as elegant as it was absurd. The cigarette umbrella, or sometimes the built-in cigarette holder with an umbrella attachment. These weren't large umbrellas for you. They were tiny, often spring-loaded contraptions designed specifically to shield your lit cigarette from the elements. Picture someone huddled in a downpour, getting soaked, but holding this miniature canopy perfectly positioned over their cigarette, ensuring it stayed dry. Priorities, people. It speaks volumes about the era's smoking culture that protecting your cigarette from rain seemed like a more pressing concern than protecting, yourself. A testament to addiction's ingenuity and humanity's capacity for prioritizing the truly important things, like keeping your cancer stick lit. 11. Summer fashion in 1929 took a rigid turn. Forget flimsy fabrics. Why not hit the beach in the wooden swimsuit? Made from thin strips of spruce wood, these marvels of misplaced ingenuity were promoted as being incredibly buoyant. The logic? You wouldn't sink. You'd float effortlessly like a stylish piece of driftwood. Never mind the splinters, the complete lack of flexibility, or the fact that sitting down probably felt like wrestling with a picnic table. Imagine trying to actually swim while encased in what amounts to a wearable barrel. Comfort was clearly sacrificed for, well, nobody's quite sure what. Buoyancy, uniqueness, a desperate attempt to make termites fashionable? Thankfully, this trend sank faster than, well, someone not wearing a wooden swimsuit. 12. Want to walk with a spring in your step? Literally? Enter DiMuzio's jumping shoes from the 1950s. These weren't just cushioned soles, they featured actual coiled springs attached to the bottom, promising to make walking effortless and even allow for impressive leaps. Think pogo stick meets footwear. The reality? Probably less graceful gliding and more uncontrolled, potentially ankle-shattering bouncing. Imagine trying to navigate a crowded sidewalk or a flight of stairs while strapped to mini trampolines. Instead of effortless walking, users likely experience something closer to launching themselves unpredictably into low orbit or face-planting spectacularly. The ads promised walking on air. The reality was probably more like a one-way trip to the emergency room. 13. Combining childcare and house chores reached its questionable zenith with the baby mop outfit, which saw a resurgence in novelty gift markets later but had conceptual roots earlier. This wasn't an invention for babies, but one that utilized them. It was essentially a baby onesie with absorbent mop pads attached to the arms and legs. The idea? Let your crawling infant explore the house and simultaneously polish your floors. Efficiency. Why push a mop when your tiny human can do it while discovering the fascinating world of dust bunnies under the sofa? It frames parenthood less as nurturing and more as deploying a small, adorable, and slightly slobbery cleaning robot. Ethical implications aside, the sheer laziness disguised as ingenuity is worthy of some kind of award. 14. Think bicycles are great, but hate those pesky pedals and uncomfortable seats? Then the Fizzike might be for you. Note, while popularized by a modern German design concept, it drew inspiration from the very early pedalless dandy horse bicycles of the 1800s. This bizarre contraption featured a large frame that strapped to the rider's torso, suspending them between two wheels. Propulsion? Your own 2 feet, running Flintstones style along the ground. Steering? Leaning, presumably while trying not to trip. It looked less like a bicycle and more like a medieval torture device designed for extreme chafing and public ridicule. It aimed to combine walking and cycling, but arguably achieved the worst aspects of both. You're still running, but now you have a giant, awkward frame attached to you. Progress. 15. Before VR headsets, there were TV glasses. Patented back in 1963 by Hugo Gernsback, the same genius behind the Isolator Helmet. These weren't sleek goggles. They were bulky, heavy spectacles with tiny cathode ray tubes positioned right in front of each eye, connected by wires to a separate tuner and power pack you probably wore like a backpack. Imagine strapping a miniature, low-resolution television directly to your face. The ergonomics must have been nightmarish, the eye strain intense, and the overall look screaming science experiment gone wrong. It was the dream of portable personal television decades ahead of its time, but realized with technology that made it look and feel like wearing a small appliance on your head. Future tech, vintage discomfort. 16. Why settle for 2 wheels when you can have 1? Behold the monowheel, a concept that has bizarrely reappeared throughout history since the 1860s. Imagine a giant hoop, like an oversized hamster wheel, with the rider sitting inside it, often on a smaller frame suspended within the main wheel. Propulsion usually involved pedals, or sometimes even a small motor, connected to the inner frame, attempting to make the outer wheel rotate. Steering, primarily leaning and praying. Stability, essentially non-existent when stationary. Visibility, often terrible. Potential for spectacular face-planting falls? Approximately 100%. It looked undeniably futuristic in a steampunk sort of way, but the physics were always questionable. It's the kind of vehicle that screams, "I value novelty significantly more than my collarbone." A triumph of circular ambition over basic common sense. 17. Before cars dominated, inventors dreamed of alternatives, leading to contraptions like the walking machine. Think less vehicle, more mechanical nightmare horse. Various designs popped up from the late 1800s into the early 1900s, often featuring complex systems of levers, gears, and jointed legs intended to mimic walking or running, powered by steam or early combustion engines. Instead of wheels smoothly gliding over terrain, these mechanical monstrosities clanked, lurched, and stumbled forward on articulated limbs. Imagine the noise, the vibration, the sheer terrifying inefficiency of trying to replicate animal locomotion with crude mechanics. It was the steampunk dream of legged transport, realized as a slow, unstable, and probably breakdown-prone reality. Thankfully, the simple elegance of the wheel won out, saving us from a future filled with jerky, metallic robo-horses. 18. The dream of the flying car is almost as old as the car itself. One notable and spectacularly failed attempt was the Convair Model 1-18, also known as the Convair car, developed in 1947. It wasn't just a concept, they actually built prototypes. It looked like a standard car with a detachable airplane wing and propeller unit mounted on top. Drive to the airport, attach your wings, fly away. The problem? It was mediocre as a car and even worse as a plane. One of the prototypes famously ran out of fuel mid-flight during a demonstration and crash-landed, heavily damaging the car body. It didn't exactly inspire consumer confidence. While the dream persists, the Convair car remains a perfect historical example of why combining 2 complex machines often results in something that does both jobs badly and sometimes very dangerously. 19. Worried about hitting pedestrians in the burgeoning chaos of 1920s city traffic? A Parisian inventor, though the idea was picked up in the US, proposed a solution: the Pedestrian Caret. This wasn't some subtle safety feature. It was a giant scoop or net mounted on the front of the car, designed to literally catch jaywalkers or unlucky bystanders before they went under the wheels. Imagine driving around with what looks like a giant butterfly net, or a snowplow designed for humans strapped to your bumper. Promotional images often showed startled-looking dummies being gently scooped up. The reality? Probably more like launching people into the air or trapping them awkwardly against the grill. It aimed for safety but looked like a prop from a Wile E. Coyote cartoon, a hilariously impractical solution to a serious problem. 20. Sharing is caring, right? Even when it comes to slowly killing yourselves? Enter the cigarette holder for 2, a novelty item that peaked in the 1950s. This elegant, or perhaps just deeply weird, device was essentially a Y-shaped tube, allowing 2 people to smoke the same cigarette simultaneously. Imagine the intimacy, the romance, the shared experience of inhaling tar and nicotine directly into your lungs, face to face with your smoking buddy. It was marketed as a way to share a smoke elegantly at parties or on dates. In reality, it was probably awkward, inefficient, and doubled the chances of accidentally setting someone's hair on fire. A perfect symbol of an era when smoking was so ubiquitous, people invented new ways to do it together, regardless of how absurd it looked. 21. Before modern fire escapes and safety regulations, inventors tackled the problem of rescuing people from burning buildings with the LifeSaving Net. Patented as early as 1887, these weren't the sturdy nets firefighters use today. Early versions were often just large pieces of canvas held taut by a group of brave, or terrified, bystanders below. The idea: jump from the window, land safely in the net. The reality: accuracy was key. Miss the net? Splat? Hit the net? Sometimes you bounced right back out, or the force of impact sent the net holders tumbling. It was a desperate measure with wildly inconsistent results, turning a life-saving attempt into a potentially deadly game of human trampoline roulette. Better than nothing? Maybe, sometimes. 22. World War fears spurred innovation in strange directions, including the gas-resistant baby stroller. As the threat of chemical warfare loomed over Europe and terrified Americans during WW2 and even WWI, inventors designed sealed, often intimidating-looking prams. These weren't just covered strollers. They were like miniature, wheeled gas masks for infants, sometimes featuring filtered air pumps and ominous-looking metal or rubberized casings. Picture parents calmly pushing these apocalyptic baby tanks down the street. While born from genuine fear, the designs themselves look like something from a dystopian sci-fi film, a chilling reminder of how wartime anxieties permeated even the most innocent aspects of life. Preparing for the worst, one terrifying baby buggy at a time. 23. The Roaring '20s weren't just about jazz and flappers, they were also a golden age of quack medical devices. Case in point, the Rejuvenator machine. These contraptions came in various forms, but often involved sitting in a chair or lying on a table, while being subjected to a cocktail of vibrations, mild electrical currents, colored lights, or even ozone gas. Promoters claimed they could reverse aging, cure ailments, boost vitality, and basically make you young and fabulous again through sheer technological willpower and pseudoscience. It was the era's equivalent of today's miracle supplements and anti-aging fads, just with more wires, buzzing noises, and a distinct possibility of getting a nasty shock. People paid good money to be vibrated and zapped into youthfulness. 24. Tired of pushing that heavy lawnmower? The 1950s offered a hands-free solution, sort of, power mower. Shoes. This wasn't a shoe brand, it was literally a pair of modified boots or platforms with small, spinning mower blades attached underneath, powered by a backpack engine or long electrical cords. The idea: just walk around your lawn and presto. Perfectly manicured grass. What could possibly go wrong while strapping rapidly spinning blades directly to your feet? Tripping hazards, uneven cutting, accidental amputation of toes. The possibilities for disaster were endless. It combined the dangers of lawnmower operation with the inherent instability of walking, creating a product seemingly designed by someone who hated both lawns and feet. 25. Perhaps the most zen, yet utterly baffling, American invention sensation was the pet rock. Launched in 1975 by advertising executive Gary Dahl, this was quite literally a smooth stone sourced from a Mexican beach, nestled on straw bedding inside a cardboard box, designed like a pet carrier. It came with a hilarious care and training manual detailing how to teach your rock to sit, stay, and play dead. Spoiler, it excelled at these. It was marketed as the perfect pet. Requires no feeding, walking, or grooming. Americans, in a moment of collective, brilliant absurdity, bought millions of them. It became a massive fad, proving that sometimes the dumbest ideas are the most successful, especially if packaged with a good dose of humor and marketed to people tired of actual responsibility. 26. Does your goldfish feel neglected? Longing for the great outdoors? The 1990s presented a solution you didn't know you needed: the fish walker. This wasn't a leash. It was a small wheeled cart designed to hold a fishbowl, allowing you to take your aquatic companion for a walk around the neighborhood. Imagine strolling down the sidewalk, leash in hand, pulling a sloshing fishbowl on wheels behind you, while your bewildered goldfish bumps against the glass, presumably wondering what dimension it just entered. Did the fish enjoy the scenery? Did it get exercise? Absolutely not. Did it provide a unique opportunity for awkward conversations with strangers? Guaranteed. It's the kind of invention that makes you wonder if someone had a pet fish, a wagon, and far, far too much free time. 27. Warfare is hell, especially if you're a horse dealing with chemical weapons. During World War I, as gas attacks became a horrific reality, armies developed horse gas masks. These weren't simple nose coverings. They were elaborate, often terrifying-looking contraptions made of rubberized canvas and metal filters, designed to fit over a horse's entire muzzle and eyes. Picture cavalry charges or supply wagons pulled by horses wearing these dystopian equine masks. While a necessary evil to protect vital animals, the image itself is pure nightmare fuel. Horses transformed into monstrous, goggle-eyed creatures, seemingly preparing for battle on some alien planet. A stark, bizarre reminder of how technology forced even animals into the horrifying realities of modern warfare. 28. Forget underwire. The 1940s briefly experimented with the concept of a mechanical bra. These weren't just supportive garments. Some patents featured intricate systems of levers, springs, or inflatable sections designed to provide adjustable lift and shape. One design even proposed small motors for enhanced support. It sounds less like lingerie and more like an engineering project gone slightly mad. Imagine getting dressed in the morning and having to wind up your bra or check its battery level. While aiming for comfort and support, the mechanical bra concept probably felt more like strapping into a piece of industrial equipment than slipping into something comfortable. Thankfully, simpler and less noisy solutions prevailed. 29. Feeling hot-headed? Literally? A 1930s invention offered personal cooling on the go, the mechanical fan hat. This wasn't just a wide-brimmed hat. It had a small, often battery-powered fan mounted directly on top or on the brim, aimed squarely at the wearer's face. Instant breeze. Constant breeze. Right in your eyes. Imagine the whirring noise inches from your ears, the questionable weight balance, and the sheer visual absurdity of walking around with a personal propeller attached to your headwear. It was the precursor to modern portable fans, but with significantly less style and significantly more potential for getting your hair caught in the blades. A cool idea in theory, a comical disaster in practice. 30. The atomic age of the 1950s brought boundless optimism and some truly terrifying ideas. Among the worst, the nuclear-powered aircraft. Yes, the US Air Force genuinely invested millions in researching and developing planes powered by onboard nuclear reactors. Project Pluto, NEPA. The theoretical advantage? Unlimited flight time. Planes could stay airborne for weeks or months without refueling. The terrifying disadvantages? The massive weight of radiation shielding, the risk of radioactive crashes scattering nuclear material across the landscape, and the general nightmare of flying in a nuclear reactor. Thankfully, the sheer danger and impracticality eventually grounded the project, leaving atomic bombers firmly in the realm of Cold War nightmares and not soaring over our heads. 31. Camping meets. Convenience meets sheer laziness, the walking sleeping bag. While various concepts have emerged over time, the core idea, particularly from the 60s and 70s camping boom, was a sleeping bag with integrated legs and armholes. Too cold to get out of your bag in the morning? No problem. Just stand up and shuffle around camp like a giant quilted caterpillar. Need to grab something just out of reach? Extend an arm. It promised warmth and mobility, but delivered maximum awkwardness. Imagine trying to navigate uneven terrain or use the latrine while zipped into your wearable bed. It's the ultimate expression of wanting to stay cozy at all costs, even the cost of looking utterly ridiculous. 32. Peak 1980s novelty design, the Hamburger phone. Popularized partly by the movie Juno but originating earlier, this was a fully functional landline telephone shaped exactly like a cartoonish plastic hamburger, complete with bun, patty, lettuce, and cheese. Lifting the top bun revealed the dial pad. Was it ergonomic? No. Was it practical? Absolutely not. Did it perfectly capture a certain era of kitschy, unnecessary, yet somehow iconic consumer design? 100%. It's the kind of phone that screams, I make questionable life choices, but I have a sense of humor about it. A greasy plastic icon of telecommunication absurdity. 33. Finally, the epitome of unnecessary invention, courtesy of cartoonist Rube Goldberg in 1931. Though he designed it as satire, people did build similar contraptions. The self-operating napkin. Why simply wipe your own mouth when an incredibly complex machine can do it for you? Goldberg's famous cartoon depicted a sequence involving a soup spoon, a cracker, a parrot, gears, rockets, and ultimately a napkin swinging around to dab the diner's chin. It perfectly satirized humanity's tendency to over-engineer solutions to simple problems. While intended as a joke, it represents the weirdest inventions perfectly, often complex, usually impractical, and hilariously unnecessary. The ultimate dumb invention, designed to highlight dumb inventions. Okay, seriously, who signed off on some of these? Motorized roller skates? A mask to stop you eating? America, you beautifully weird disaster piece. So, which of these 33 inventions made you lose it? Drop the weirdest one in the comments below. If this trip through innovation's dark side made you laugh or cry, smash that like button and hit subscribe. You don't want to miss what other historical fails we dig up next.